Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at a 3D printer, and not just any 3D printer, but the smallest printer I've ever seen so far. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do our first print. So I'm pretty excited about this thing, so let's get started. Alright, so I got this printer from a company called Easythreed. They do make different printers, and this is one of them that they offer. And this is called the E3D Nano. And this thing is very nano, guys. I don't know if you can really see, but you know, the size of my hand here and this box, it's a very small printer, which is kind of interesting. This could easily fit on your desk beside a computer or just in tight spaces. That's kind of cool that there is a size like this. All right, so let's look at the packaging here. So here we have the branding, then we have the white color, which is cool because I like white. So here we have a little bit of information, filament type, simple design, advanced technology of a ceramic heater. It's interesting. So here in the back we have parameters, kind of introduces the brand here and who this printer is for. Here we can look at the size of the print volume is actually very reasonable, because if you look at the shell of the printer, we'll look at the printing volume. So in the front we have 90 width and then 110 depth and 110 high. That's a very good size for this tiny little printer. So here are some of the parameters. Pretty cool. Here we have a little more information. And on the top we have a handle here, which is kind of nice. It looks like one of those little retail boxes that, you know, if you'd go to the store, like an electronics store, you know, you'd be able to pick one of these up. So yeah guys, as we can see, it looks like it's something that is very simple and can be pulled out of the box and used right away. All right, so let's open this thing up. So there is a seal here. So that's really nice that they put a seal on here, because that way you know that you're getting a new printer and that it's never been opened before. All right, and when we open the box, we can see the printer inside, and that thing is bubble wrapped in like these pretty large bubbles here. So let's go ahead and pull it out. And that's it for the box. I'm still baffled of how little this thing is. So yeah guys, you can see how little this thing is. It is tiny. Now that it's out of the box, it's even more smaller than you would think. So let's go straight to underneath here. We can see we have nice foamy feet for vibration dampening, and here we have some specs on the bottom. All right, well, let's go ahead and unwrap it here. So it's presented very nicely. So on the top here, it looks like they have a box. Yeah, it's all taped around. What I'm noticing here, there's little doors all around the printer. Well, look at that. Oh, okay, so they come off completely. So they're little clear cover window doors that just pop off. Very cool. So essentially you have a sealed sidewall on this printer. So yeah, this thing is definitely packed with care, and that's nice to see. And there's actually another door on the back. Look at that. All right, so let's go ahead and pull this box out. It's amazing that the box that it comes with all the stuff in it, is almost half of the printer. All right, and that is all the packing tape. Very nice looking little printer. So I do see that there are some 3D printing parts in there, like that piece right there, but that's about it. Actually, there is more packing material here, which is the supports. So I still can't get over of how small this thing is. I'm actually really impressed and excited that they make something this little, because I feel like this would be good for some people here for sure. Especially if this thing can make good prints, then this thing definitely would be something that could be very usable for a lot of people. Before we go into detail about the printer, let's go ahead and unpack all the stuff that comes with it, which is here. And looks like they have a nice little picture here that shows you what's inside. So far the experience has been very well with unboxing, and just the overall feeling that you get with the whole branding and everything is very nice. All right, so that's what it looks like when you first open it. So here it looks like we have spool holder or something, maybe is what it looks like. And these are 3D printed also. Very nice. So I see another piece here, and that, yeah, that's probably, well, that makes more sense because I think that's where the spool would sit on top of this thing. So here we have an SD card with a reader, USB reader, and it's a 1 gig little micro SD card. A Phillips screwdriver, nice. A little spatula to, I guess, scrape the prints off. I'm not sure how good that will work because it's not very sharp. So here we have the power supply, and it's a 12 volt 5 amp power supply. Pretty nice. So this will go into the printer. Provided AC plug here will go in the power plug, and we do have the US plug. Very nice. So we also get a USB connection cable. That's very cool if you wanted to print straight from your computer. And then we get a pretty nice, generous amount of PLA filament, looks like 250 grams. Very nice. And the last thing we have is a user manual, and it looks like they did a really good job on the manual here, which will explain in more detail of how to use the printer. And the manual is very rugged. It's not thin paper, it's very thick. So all right, pretty awesome. All right, so let's take a closer look at this thing. So it looks like that the moving parts here slide on these metal rods, and we do have belts. So same thing for the hot end here. It rides on a double rod here, so it doesn't flex as much. And same thing on this side. We have a rod for the y-axis here, and that's how it'll travel back and forth. So up and down on the Z, looks like there's 4 lead screws, really small ones, but they're in each corner there. So that should be very stable as it's going up and very flat. So if we go to the bottom here, we can see the bed. There's actually 4 Phillips screws. And the screwdriver that they included, I think, is for that reason, is to level the bed. So you can tighten it to go down and loosen it to go up. So over here on the bottom, we can see that there's a little switch. And I think that is the Z-axis switch, which appears to be that there's no more switches. So that might be the only switch what it goes off of. So when it goes over there and clicks it, that's where it starts off on all axes. The design is cleverly very simple for a 3D printer that is a complicated machine technically. So the more I was looking at this thing, the more I was wondering what these 3D printed green parts are, and I realized that they were just holders. They're just holding it from moving around. So they're not actually part of the printing process. Little brackets that are made to hold the y-axis from moving around. So they just pop right off, just like that. So technically you don't really need them unless you're gonna, you know, transport the printer, because now that they're off, we can go ahead and move this thing back and forth. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back door off also. So here on the hot end, we can see that there is a fan to cooling on the heat break there, but there is not a dedicated blower fan for the part cooling. So just by looking at it, it looks like that the motor that runs the x-axis is all in here. So the extruder, the motor for the x-axis, the hot end, and everything is just all inside this assembly that is protected. And this is all plastic, so it shouldn't get very hot at all. So definitely a very safe design for children. It's definitely pretty neat how it works. So this is where you would put in your filament, right in here. And so in the front of the printer, you can see that there's these rods there. Those are actually the y-axis rods. And if I move this thing around, you can see them spinning. So you got the Y and the Z together over here in the front. And then you just got the Z on each corner. A very nice and simplistic design. Definitely a very interesting design printer. It was definitely thought through when it was built. So here we are at the back, and here we have a few switches and plugs. So we have the SD card reader there, the USB port that they provide you that you can connect to the computer, and the power socket. And over here we have a toggle switch, and hopefully you can see that, guys, but we have the center, and then we have feed this way and retract that way, and that is for filament. So if you want to put filament in, you'll put it on feed, and then if you want to take the filament out or change the filament, you would retract it. Very cool. And here in the front of the printer we have one button, and essentially this is how you would operate the printer. It doesn't have a screen or any other controls to choose from, so I'm guessing that you would just go from the last file on your SD card and that's what it would print. Very interesting. Alright, so I'm pretty excited to get this thing up and running. I'm really curious of what kind of prints we're going to get from this printer. All right, so let's get our power plugged in and see if we can figure out maybe how to level our bed there. So when you do plug it in, the power brick does have a little green light there indicating power. So here in the back of the printer, we're just gonna plug it in. And as I plugged it in, you can see, guys, that the light came on here. And actually I can hear the fan in the back here turned on also. So it doesn't appear that there is a on and off switch for the power. So you'd have to unplug it from the back here when you're done with it, just like that. So not a big deal, but it would have been nice if they had a power button. So this is our spool holder here, and technically it should, okay, there we go. So it just clips on just like this, and then you just go down, and that's where your spool will hold. I mean, obviously you can put this thing anywhere you want, in the back, the front, to the side. Now it looks like it's made only for the side. So we're gonna go ahead and put it on this side, and then this straight piece just goes on here somehow, and just like that, and you have yourself a little spool holder. Very simple and easy design. And so when you want to change spools, you just pull this piece out just like that. So let's go ahead and take this one out. So then we're going to simply put this through the middle and then attach it to our printer just like that. Very simple. So once you get your spool on, then you grab your filament here, make sure you cut this preferably on an angle so it goes in easier, and then we're going to feed it into this little white tube here. And we're just going to feed it down like that. And now we're going to look at the manual and see what it tells us of the procedures for loading it and maybe bed leveling. All right, so what you're going to do next is you're going to go to the back here on the switch, and we're going to click it to, so once we click that over to feed, we can see a little light here, and hopefully the camera is picking that up, but the light is flashing very quickly, and that's indicating that the printer is heating up. So it's heating up the hot end on the end here. So we got to wait till it heats up, and then it should start pulling this filament here through and then coming out the bottom. All right, so it actually grabbed it and it's going down. So once we start seeing something coming out of there, we can go ahead and switch the switch on the back to the middle. All right, there it goes. So I'm gonna go ahead. It looks like we had some red or pink in there earlier, I guess for testing. So we're just gonna run that through till it becomes more white. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and switch it in the back here to the middle, and that stops it. So now that we purged the valve, we're good to go. So the hot end is actually going to be cooling down now that I turned it back to the center in the back here. And the way you would take out the filament is you'd go the other way. It would preheat it, and then it would push it out for you, and then you'd have to take it out the rest of the way. So very simple, not hard at all. All right, so after looking at the manual, I don't really see a way that you can adjust the bed. So you'll have to adjust it according to when it starts printing, and that's a little bit unfortunate because, you know, that's a little bit hard to do, especially for somebody that's just beginning to print. But in any case, it's not that big of a deal. You can just start and restop your project a couple times if you had to in the beginning. But I think once you get the bed right, you won't have to touch it ever again. So that's the good part. So I'm going to go ahead and just level the bed here with my platform. So I'm just going to kind of finger touch it here and level it with the platform. And that way, whenever it starts printing, I'll be able to see if I need to go up and down according to, you know, my first layer that's going down. All right, so now that we got our printer set up, we need to bring a file into the printer to print it. All right, so I wasn't able to use the software that they provided for the slicer of this thing because I'm using Mac, and apparently it only works for Windows. But if you have a Windows computer, you could install that from the little micro SD card that's included in here, the software to slice models for the printer. Or you could use Cura, obviously. We're going to actually print the model that they include in this thing, which is already on the SD card. So what I've done is I moved everything from the SD card to my desktop, and then I just put the G code back into the SD card by itself. So that's the only thing on here. So here we can see the slot for the micro SD card, and it looks like that goes in upside down. So now I plugged in the printer and we have power. So technically right now, all we got to do is press this button and it should all just start working. So let's go ahead and do that. So the power button is slowly fluctuating. Or should I say the play button here? So I'm guessing it's preheating right now. So once it preheats, it'll start printing. And I'm going to go ahead and stand by with this screwdriver here. When it starts printing, I'm going to see if the bed level is good enough, and we can adjust it as it goes. So in the manual here, it tells you that if you push this button while it's printing, it'll pause it. And then if you push it again, it'll resume the print. Now, if you want to stop the print completely, then what you're going to do is you're going to hold this for 3 seconds, completely cancel the print, and then you can, you know, start over. So not too hard to use. All right, so as we can see, it's moving around. Okay, so it looks like it's homing right now. Okay, so it started, but it is definitely a little high, guys. I can tell that it's high. So I'm gonna go ahead and push pause here. So it just stops at right where it's at. So I'm just gonna back these out a full turn on each one. Kind of stop this thing right at the wrong spot. So we can kind of get a feeling for it. So it's just a little bit higher than the platform. Let's go ahead and continue and see what that looks like. So yeah, that is much better, but it's still too high. So we're gonna pause it again and back off another turn or so. So this is more of a trial and error kind of thing that you're gonna have to do one time here. So that's definitely much better. And it seems to be sticking really good also. All right guys, so it looks like it's printing and everything's fine. And I think I got it tuned pretty well. I'm not sure exactly what it's doing, but I think it's building a raft. So whatever it's printing on top of that is gonna be sitting on this print that it's making now. So one thing I'm noticing is they definitely got a pretty low speed on this thing. So I don't know exactly how long this model will take, but we'll check it out. I'm gonna try to set up a little time lapse here so you guys can see. So it's definitely starting to print more of the fine detail there. I don't know if that's the bottom of something or what, but we'll see what happens. So the printer is doing pretty well so far. It looks like it has printed what it was going to print on top of that raft. So it looks pretty promising. Alright guys, and the vase is finally done, and we do have a time lapse, so hopefully that turned out pretty good. And because the bed doesn't move at all, we should, have a pretty clean time lapse since our part is not moving. So I did add this little light here to give a little better effect. So one of the interesting things about this printer is that it actually has a removable bed. And I thought that was kind of crazy because I didn't believe it, but I think it does. And it's a little bit hard to get it off because the magnets are actually pretty strong, but it does come off, as you can see guys, which is kind of crazy. I almost wish they made some kind of tab to lift it by or something, maybe in the back to make it easier. But yeah, it does have a magnetic bed, which is really neat. So let's see if the flexing works and makes the print come off. Look at that, easy peasy, no problem. And by the way guys, I didn't even put glue on here. This surface here seems to stick really good. So I don't think you're gonna need glue. If you are having problems with sticking, try the glue. Or, keep trying to level the bed where your nozzle is pretty close, but it's not too close where it's, squishing out. But it's something to learn for sure, how to adjust beds. So I'm just gonna put this back in. And obviously that goes back in really easy. Alright, so let's look at this vase that I printed. It's very nice, looks like. So the raft should just pop right off. Let's see if it does. And it does really easily. So our bottom is definitely not perfect, but I think that had something to do with the raft here. Because the raft printed nice, and then when it came to the vase, seems like it was a little bit far off from the raft. And that's why you can see the bottom there doesn't look all that great. But that's okay, it all still printed and still looks very good. And if we look at the patterns, we can see the details are very nice. Honestly, I was not expecting this good of a quality from this printer on the details. That's actually very impressive. So this just says that you don't have to have a fancy large printer in order to print good quality prints. And so what this printer has to offer, this is pretty amazing what it could do. All right, so we printed this vase from the STL file that was included with the printer. So the next thing I want to do is I want to try to print something slice myself in Cura, and I'm just going to use my i3 mini profile for this thing because the beds are extremely similar, and we'll see how that works out. So this vase printed really slow. I think it took about 4 hours or so to print this little thing. Maybe a little more than that. I didn't really calculate it, but it was a while. So this new print that we're gonna print, I think is larger than this, and it should take only about 2.5 hours or less. All right, so I put the SD card in, and I went ahead and left the other G code in there. So I'm kind of curious, if I have 2 G codes in there, will it just print the newest one or what? So that's what we're going to test right now. And the reason I was wondering that if you keep adding the G codes to it, would you be able to print the last one? That way you don't have to delete the older one. So we'll see here in a second what it will start printing. So we can see our hot end is heating up because we got some leakage coming. All right, and there it goes. Hopefully we'll be all right. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. So we are a little bit off to one edge there, but it looks like we have plenty of room. So we're a little bit off-centered, and the reason for that is because of the original profile is for the monoprice i3 mini. But that's okay, we're still looking really good, and I think we're gonna be just all right where we are. So I'm gonna set up this GoPro here, and hopefully we'll have a pretty good time lapse. Alright guys, so I printed a couple more things. As you can see, I got this head figure here, and then I also printed a box, or kind of like a little trash can, to better show you the volume of print here that this printer can do. So this is not maximized completely, but it's really close. It's about 5 millimeters off in each direction. So this box will kind of give you a visual of how big your models can be on this little tiny printer. So as I was using this, I want to note a few things. First of all, it's very quiet. It is much quieter than all the other printers that I have, and I think it's because most of the things are inside of this bottom piece here, where it isolates all of the noise, and you can hear the fan on the hot end assembly here, but it's not very loud. And I didn't even use the doors around it. If I put those on, I think it'll be very, very quiet after that. So that's a big plus for this thing, is that it's quiet. Now initially I thought the one button was going to be a problem, but it's actually not that big of a deal, because the files that you put on your SD card, it actually reads the last file you put on there. So after printing this, I added this while still keeping this file, and it printed that. And then after that I added another file, which was this, and it printed that also. And so I still have these two files on the SD card. I can't go back and print these, but at least you don't have to go back and delete every time the file. So that's kind of nice that it prints your latest file that you drop into the SD card. So the printing speed on this that came with the printer is kind of slow. I think it was printing at 20 millimeters a second. And in Cura, I sliced this model here 40 millimeters per second, and it only took about 2.5 hours or less to print this thing, which is pretty quick. So it can go faster. All right, so let's talk about print quality next. And I'm actually blown away how good the print quality is. And the reason I'm blown away is because for a printer with this kind of simple design, it's pretty impressive how good it can put down the layers. Now it's a little hard to see on the white obviously, but you can still see all the layers there. I mean, for the most part, they're pretty much perfect. And I did print this guy and the trash can here at 0.16 layer height. So I've been printing mostly in 0.12, but I'm realizing that I think I'm going to move to 0.16 because I'm still having a very good layer resolution without sacrificing too much time printing. So even if you look underneath, and I don't know guys if you can see or not, but there's not really much overhangs or issues that I can see. Of course, this model is made to be printed avoiding overhangs as much as possible, but you can see that it will print, and it will print very nicely. So let's pull this trash can out with the bed. And what I've noticed so far is that they have like little holes here on the edge, and you can pry something in there and pull it up. At first I was trying to pry it from the center and like this from whatever side, but that doesn't work very well. What you want to do is pry the end with something. You can even do it with your nail if you have nails. Like I can easily just lift that up right now, as you can see. But if you don't, you can use like a little screwdriver or something, and you can poke it in there. And you can lift it with that and then grab it. So once you get used to it, it's not so bad, but it's definitely not an easy task. Well, you can see guys that it did print on the bed very nicely, and you know, this is pretty much the maximum. We could go a couple more millimeters this way and barely 80 this way, and we'd pretty much fill it up. This is actually a really nice print area size, especially for how tiny this printer is. So let's see how this comes off. We should be able just to bend it, and sure enough, it easily comes off. So overall guys, the layers on the trash can here are very good. So this is printed and spiralized, so it's got only one layer all the way around here, and it's got about 4 in the bottom. So the bottom was a little bit tricky, but I was actually re-leveling the bed as I was printing the bottom, because once I went this wide, I was off a little bit. And so that kind of led to, you know, not a perfect level, but overall it does print, and it puts the print together very nicely, and it's pretty strong. You can see here, you know, the layers adhesion is very good. You can see that it does put the layers down very nicely. And if you're wondering why I keep saying that the printer is tiny, here is an Ender 3 and the E3D inside of the printing area of the Ender 3 Pro here. So if 3D printers were printable, then the Ender 3 could print the Easythreed Nano here. So overall, I'm really impressed with this printer, and I think that it does have a place in the 3D printing world. And I'm surprised how innovative this printer is because it utilizes some pretty interesting methods to be this little and still be a full-blown 3D printer and friendly to use at the same time. So I really think this would appeal to people that don't want a large, huge, industrial looking printer and just want to print something casually. And if they have kids and their kids are interested in 3D printing and they want to give it a shot, you know, this is something that's not going to burden the area that it's in because of its size. So with that said, it does have a few downfalls, and you know, not having a screen to operate anything could be an issue for some, but it's a more simplistic feature for others. Not being able to put the larger spool could be an issue, but you could use an external one. And not having the dedicated part cooling fan could definitely be an issue if you start printing a lot of overhangs and things like that. But for someone that doesn't care about any of that stuff and just wants to print out of the box, and they'll have a nice looking 3D printed part at the end, then this thing does the job. Alright guys, well hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then hit that like button. And if you're interested in a printer like this, I'll leave some links in the description, so check that out. I think this will do good with kids especially. Maybe some older folks that have never used a 3D printer could be a good choice also. Or just anyone that just wants to try out 3D printing. I think this is not a bad idea and wants something really small. So this will do really good for that. And it comes with everything you need to get started, so there's no fiddling around or looking for stuff. You just plug it in, get your bottle, and start printing. And also guys, if you enjoy videos like this and you're not subscribed to this channel, then hit that subscribe button to see more videos. I do a lot of 3D printing reviews and other things on this channel. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. And if you're wondering why